For over a long time, people, especially women, have been fighting for their rights. Although this debate was a success and was cleared before, we are still under progress. In 1848, the first Women's Rights Convention is held in Seneca Falls, New York. After 2 days of discussion and debate, 68 women and 32 men signed a declaration of sentiment, which outlines grievances and sets the agenda for the women's rights movement. A set of 12 resolutions is adopted calling for equal treatment of women and men under the law and voting rights for women. In 1850, the first National Women's Rights Convention takes place in Worcester, Massachusetts, attracting more than 1,000 participants. National conventions are here held yearly, except for year 1857 through 1860. In 1869 May, Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton formed the National Women's Suffrage Association. The primary goal of the organization is to achieve voting rights for women by means of a congressional amendment to the Constitution. In November that same year, Lucy Stone, Henry Blackwell, and others formed the American Women's Suffrage Association. This group focuses exclusively on gaining voting rights for women through amendments to individual state constitutions. In that same year, December 10th, the Territory of Wyoming passes the first women's suffrage law. The following year, women begin serving on juries in the territory. Another 19 years later, the National Women's Suffrage Association and the American Women's Suffrage Association merged to form National American Women's Suffrage Association, or in shortened form NAWSA. As the movement's mainstream organization, NAWSA wages state-by-state campaigns to obtain voting rights for women. In 1893, Colorado is the first state to adopt an amendment granting women the right to vote. Utah and Idaho follow suit in 1896, Washington State in 1910, California in 1911, Oregon, Kansas, and Arizona in 1912, Alaska and Illinois in 1913, Montana and Nevada in 1914, New York in 1917, Michigan, South Dakota, and Oklahoma in 1918. In 1913, Alice Paul and Lucy Burns formed the Congressional Union to work towards the passage of a federal amendment to give women the right to vote. The group is later renamed the National Women's Party. Members picket the White House and practice other forms of civil disobedience. In 1919, the Federal Women's Suffrage Amendment, originally written by Susan B. Anthony and introduced in Congress in 1878, is passed by the House of Representatives and the Senate. It is then sent to the states for ratification. In 1961, President John Kennedy establishes the President's Commission on the Status of Women and appoints Eleanor Roosevelt as chairwoman. The report issued by the Commission in 1963 documents substantial discrimination against women in the workplace and makes specific recommendations for improvement, including fair hiring practices, paid maternity leave, and affordable child care. In 1963, June 10th to be precise, Congress passes the Equal Pay Act, making it illegal for employers to pay a woman less than what a man should receive for the same job. In 1966, the National Organization for Women, or NEW, now is founded by a group of feminists including Betty Friedan. The largest women's rights group in the U.S. now seeks to end sexual discrimination, especially in the workplace, by means of legislative lobbying, litigation, and public demonstrations. In 1972, March 22nd, the Equal Rights Amendment, or the ERA, is passed by Congress and sent to the states for ratification. Originally drafted by Alice Paul in 1923, the amendment reads, "Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex." The amendment died in 1982 when it failed to achieve ratification by a minimum of 38 states. In June 23rd, in 1972 again, Title IX of the Education Amendment bans sex discrimination in schools. It states, "No person in the United States shall on the basis of sex be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance." As a result of Title IX, the enrollment of women in athletic programs and professional schools increased dramatically. As I told you, there is a lot of changes to make. Even in 2009, President Obama signed the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Restoration Act, which allows victims of pay discrimination to file a complaint with the government against their employer within 180 days of their last paycheck. Previously, victims, most often women, were only allowed 180 days from the date of the first unfair paycheck. This act is named after a former employee of Goodyear who alleged that she was paid 15 to 40% less than her male counterparts, which was later found to be accurate. As my point here is that women's suffrage is a never-ending fight. Miss Sally McMillan, a professor at the North Carolina University and a famous nationwide author on the top picks for women's suffrage books, has to say,